Hey everybody, welcome to Carpentry Practices 1. Today we're going to be building this sawhorse. Before we get started, we're going to go over ground rules again. We're going to do this probably every class. So some important safety issues to bring up. You're going to need to wear your safety glasses at all time, your hard hat. You're going to want to make sure you're wearing steel-toed boots, CSA green patch approved. You're going to not be wearing any rings or jewelry. Maybe you don't want to show me licking my finger. If you have long hair, tie it back. If you have drawstrings on your sweater, tie them up or tuck them in. So these are the things that we're going to reinforce every class going forward. It's very important. With all that being said, let's get started. This is what we're building today. I'm going to go step by step through it with you. So for this project, you'll still be using only hand tools. Number one, you're going to need a handsaw, which will be given to you. You're going to need a hammer, a speed square, measuring tape, pencil, you'll be given common nails. These are 3-inch, easy to set, easy to take out. And you'll be given an assortment of rough materials that you'll be cutting to size. In this case, all 2x4 material. Hopefully you brought your drawing with you and your rubric so you know what the learning objectives are and you have a diagram to follow. That's essential. That's your responsibility to bring into class every day. If you look at your diagram, you're going to see a list of dimensions. This is a fairly simple project. However, there are going to be some dimensions that don't exist on these drawings that you're going to have to deduce for yourself. And what I mean by that is if you look at your drawing, you see you have 2 sets of legs and then a form of tabletop in the form of 2 2x4s. So I've constructed one of the legs already to use as a reference for the second set of legs that I'll be constructing with you on camera. As you can see in this example, which is the first set of legs for the sawhorse, in your drawing you'll see a vertical dimension of 2'8", so 32 inches. Now that is to the underside of the tabletop of the sawhorse. The problem is that the leg dimension is on a 15-degree angle, which you'll also see in your drawing. So the actual point length of the leg is not 2'8". So you have to determine what the length of that leg is. There's many ways to do that. There's the theoretical way of doing it, which is that you find the hypotenuse, but for the purpose of a site-built workbench or sawhorse, we're not going to go that far into detail. So I'm going to show you an easy site way to do it. There are a million ways to do it. You may have your own idea, a better idea, but I'm going to show you the way that I would like to do it and one way that you can do it. So, using this as an example, I'm going to gather the materials that you need. Grab 2 long lengths of 2x4. You'll have these rough lengths of lumber in your booth. We're going to use these for the legs. And the way I'd like to do it, to start, is to cut these lengths long. And then you'll cut them to length once they're assembled, like this example here. I'm going to take my speed square and my pencil, and because I'm marking these pieces long, I'm just going to set my pivot point wherever I choose. I'm going to go from 0, find my 15-degree angle, and mark it with my pencil. Now, when you're hand cutting versus using a circular saw, the one additional marking you're going to need to make is a 90-degree pencil mark indicating a line for your handsaw to follow. And this is really important. Now there's going to be different conditions in your space, but for the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to use this stool and a clamp to clamp my material. I'm going to take my handsaw. I'm going to brace the material or the stool that I'm using. I'm going to use my knuckle and my nail to set that sawtooth into the cut. Now this is important. You obviously don't want to cut yourself. You want to stay safe. So you're using your knuckle and setting your nail back in order to keep your fingers away from the blade. And you're just going to lightly draw back the saw to set the teeth of the saw into the material. A couple of times. Now, once you've set it in, it's very important to draw back the saw backward and forward, following these two reference lines. So you're going to start working your way down, following your guide, and then you're going to work your way back, and then forward again, until your saw has set nice and safely into your cut. And now things should be pretty easy because the saw will essentially follow the line that you've set for it. So that's one. That's going to represent our 15-degree cut. That's going to represent the leg. That will be one of the legs of our sawhorse. So now I've cut all four lengths, all four 15-degree angles for our two legs that will represent one completed leg of our sawhorse. You'll see that they're different sizes. I've cut them long, and that's on purpose, and that's because of our 2'8" overall height, which is yet to be determined for the actual point length of our material. The next step is to look at your drawing again. You'll notice there's a dimension given for the top of your sawhorse, which shows a 3-inch space in between the two top rails of your project. What it doesn't give you is any horizontal dimensions for the actual A-frame, the legs of your sawhorse. So that's sort of up to you to determine. The drawing shows that there's a bit of an overhang on the outside of the tops. That's for clamping or for grabbing your sawhorse, moving it around, etc., etc., etc. So it's kind of up to your discretion what you choose to do with those dimensions. However, your drawing shows a 3-inch space in between your two top pieces. And if you were to roughly map that out, you're going to get approximately 10 inches to the outside of your two tops. So when you're putting together your leg, what you need to make sure is that you have a good overhang for your top pieces to make connection with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to space these approximately 9 inches apart, giving an inch of overhang to the material of the tops on both sides. Now, when we're forming this triangle, as we said, we can do it by finding the hypotenuse, but for site build purposes, we're going to make this a lot simpler. So once I've spaced my pieces, I'm going to use an offcut from a previous cut, which also is already going to represent a 15-degree angle. I'm going to set it in place, match up my two pieces here, and roughly trace the layout of that cross brace. I'll mark another 15-degree angle, and I'll make that cut. Once you've cut your piece, you can set it in place, choose one of your vertical legs, make sure you're nice and flush all the way around, set your common nail, making sure you're not too close to the edges, and start driving the nail. As soon as you start hammering, it's going to want to bounce away, so you're going to want to continually sort of check it before it finally sets in. Tap it around a little bit if you need, and then drive it. That's one. You can set a second to lock it in. Make sure you're flush. And that's that. Now, you set your other side. Same thing. Flush it up. Get a common nail going. Brace your material. Watch your fingers. Now, so again, roughly, this is the setup of your leg. You notice on this side, I chose to only set one nail. That's so that I can manipulate this leg, because we still don't know exactly where this is going to fall, where this second brace that's going to lock the leg in place is actually going to fall. So I'm going to check my drawing again. And you'll see the dimension 1 foot 5.5 from the underside of the top to the top side of the bottom brace. So, again, the challenge with this project is that we're not talking about a dimension along the point length of 1 foot 5.5. We're talking about an actual vertical dimension of 1 foot 5.5. So now, in order to set that dimension, you have to think a bit creatively. For my next cross brace, I've cut my 15-degree angle. I'm going to lay it roughly in place where I think it needs to go. Using my measuring tape, and in this case my speed square, just as a point of reference for a vertical measurement, I'm going to hang my tape, find approximately 17.5 inches, and set my material in place. I'm going to check it on the other side. I'm going to make a light mark just as a reference point. This is approximately my 17.5 inches. I'll check the other side to double check. I've got 17.5. I'm nice and flush here. Just move this over a little bit. And now I'm going to make my mark. And also, I'm going to mark a little tick on the underside of my material here. As you can see, got it right there. I'm going to make another 15-degree angle using my mark as my pivot point. Mark the material, put an X on the side that I don't need, and cut it with my handsaw. So now that I've got my second piece, my bottom brace for my leg ready, I can set it in place. So again, I'm going to choose one side, match it to my line, make it flush on the outside, and lock it in. Second nail to secure it. Double check my line, tap it in place. Now, here's where it comes really in handy that I've only put one nail here. This is how I set my angle and make sure everything's nice and flush. And set another nail. Now I can secure the whole leg. So now we've got our lopsided leg. So again, we'll have to be a bit creative with our decision here, but I'm going to use another piece of material. I'm going to measure along. You can use your speed square as a reference to get a little bit of an indication that you're actually vertical from your 90 from the underside of your top. And you're going to set either a level or a straight edge of some kind or a piece of material to your 32 inches or 2 foot 8. So you're going to check it in a couple of spots. Make sure you're at your 32. As you can see, that's where I am here. Take my pencil, trace those marks, a couple of X's, and now I can cut those with my handsaw. And there you have it. That's the second leg. And if I check my dimensions from the underside of the tops to the ground, I'm at 32 inches. You can see that.
Very
So reference our drawing. We've got our 2 legs, and now all that's left is to cut our 2 tops, set them in place, and nail them down, and that's the end of the project. So we'll do that right now. Now we've got one of our tops relatively secure to our legs. So I'm going to put the other piece on and finish this project up. You're given an interior dimension between the legs of 1 foot 10 inches. So you're going to have to work out the math to deduct 1 foot 10 from your 3 foot 6 overall length, including the thickness of material, etc., etc. Mark that out on your pieces. Remember that in my case, I set a 1 inch overhang. You can choose what your overhang is because there's no dimension given, but you have to make sure that you have a proper 3 inch spacing in between your material, because that dimension is given and you will be graded on it. So once I've set one leg, it's easy enough for me to just trace, although this could be skewed, so make sure that it's not. Double check your dimensions, make sure you're on the right track, which I am. Mark that out. You can check it against your exterior dimensions if you want. Mark out the dimensions on your piece using your speed square. In my case, I'm going to mark my 1 inch for the overhang. But in this case, this being my second piece, what's most important when I set this piece in place is that I have a proper 3 inch space in between. Double check that I'm on my line and drive another nail. Tap my piece in place. Another nail. So we're nearly done. We just now have to nail this piece off, secure it, and that's the end of the project. Okay, so that's your sawhorse project. So it's fairly secure. You will be disassembling it at the end of class. So you can leave it like this, but if you choose to keep your sawhorse, you might want to consider adding some bracing in the middle, some storage area. It's totally up to you if you have some excess material, but it's fairly sturdy, and that's really all you need for the purpose of this project. So read your dimensions carefully, double check everything, and that's it. Have fun.